So, start off with a couple of introductions. First of all, my name's Del. I'm the president of the University of Aberdeen Aviation and Space Medicine Society, and this is the second event in our Paraboladies lecture series. So, last week we had Lauren giving us a really good overview, introduction to space medicine, which was absolutely fab. If you missed that, the recording is now up on YouTube, so go and check that out. Tonight's talk will also be recorded, so if anybody has any issues with that, feel free to message me privately and we can sort something out, so don't worry about that. At the end of the talk, or at any point throughout the talk, if you have any questions, what to do is just type them out into the chat and we'll go through them all at the end, if that's all right with you, Nina. So, tonight's speaker is the fantastic, the inimitable Dr. Nina Purvis. She is a medical student at Barts in the London School of Medicine, but she's also got numerous other degrees in space physiology and astrophysics, just to name two. So tonight she's going to be talking about how you can get involved in the industry of space medicine whilst you're still a medical student. And I'm sure she's going to give you plenty of ways you can get your teeth stuck in even before you're qualified. Nina, I will hand the reins over to you. Best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Adele. All right. Okay, I believe you can all see this. I trust in the technology. All right, so yes, this is a talk on behalf of the Paraboladies, a group of aerospace medicine researchers that I'm part of. And this is an overview of what I'm going to go through. So basically anything and everything that I can think of that you can do related to space medicine, and hopefully it'll give you some insight or inspiration to get involved. By no means is it a kind of prescription for what you should do to get a job in space medicine. Most of it are things that I've been involved in, or I've took inspiration from the other Paraboladies kind of paths as well. And of course, always find your own opportunities. There's no right and wrong way to do this. So I'm going to start off with these little rules that I wish someone had told me when I started medicine. Comparison is the thief of joy. So I feel like everybody in medicine always compares themselves to everybody else. But really, as long as you're doing what you want to do and you're happy and you feel like you're getting your stuff done, don't compare yourself to other people. There's always somebody who's doing more than you. There's always somebody who's done something that you'd really like to do, but you'd never have the chance because it's not there anymore. Don't worry about that. Just do your thing. And also do the thing because you enjoy it, not because you think you should. So any of the things that I'm going to talk about, it's I'm not saying you need to do them. I'm just saying that the opportunities are there and that you could, and if you want to, do them. And then also to find balance. So medicine is a super difficult course. Lots and lots of studying, lots of placement. It's basically a full-time job with a degree on top of it. So definitely find balance. Don't think that you've got to do all medicine and academics to be successful, because I think a well-rounded doctor is definitely going to be better at the job than somebody who just does academics all the time. And yeah, so just don't feel any pressure. I know this is going to be a long list of stuff, but it's just there for you to cherry pick what interests you. And then this photo, which is a little bit blurry actually, but if you can't find a way to do the thing that you want to do, create one. So just be imaginative, take inspiration from things, but create your own path. I think that's what a lot of us have done in the Paraboladies, applied space medicine to things that maybe you wouldn't have applied it to, like a dissertation opportunity or a competition. So yeah, the creativity is there in it as well. So a little bit about me. I love space, as I'm sure all of you do. I decided I wanted to be a doctor when I was 25. So I redid my A-levels then and got onto the graduate course at Barts. But before that, I did a BSc, an integrated master's in astrophysics. And then I went on into medical physics. So I guess that's what interested me in becoming a clinician. I was a cancer researcher over in America, did my postdoc there in breast cancer imaging. And that's when I did my A-levels and got into medicine. So I quit all of that and came over to London to do medical school. I've also took up flying, so I'm not a very outgoing person, I would say. So for me, it was a big deal trying to get a bit of experience, on the patient perspective in aerospace medicine of what it's like to fly. And it's kind of terrifying, but it's also very exhilarating. So, and then a bit about us. If you don't know who the Paraboladies are, it sounds like we're super famous. Yeah, so there's Eleanor, Maya, myself, and Lauren. And basically the story of how we met. So Eleanor and Maya were doing the space medicine undergraduate module at UCL together. And Lauren and I met at the European Space Agency on a course. And then we all ended up at the RAF for an aviation medicine open day. And we're kind of like just having a chat. And we made friends, and Lauren ended up giving Eleanor a car ride back to London from the RAF base. And they got chatting and decided that we were going to apply for something called the Student Aerospace Challenge, sorry. So we did that, and we did our project on pre-flight medical checks for commercial suborbital spaceflight participants, or space tourists. And that kind of kicked off a whole range of things. We presented it at the Suborbital Day, which is part of the Aerospace Challenge. And we did a poster presentation. We wrote a 60-page report on it. We also submitted an abstract to one of the big aerospace medicine conferences and got that accepted and published in their journal, which was really exciting. We presented it at a couple more conferences, kind of local ones, national ones. So at the UK Space Conference in Wales, we also presented at the UK Space Primer in London. The other ladies went over to America in Arlington to present the work as well for a spotlight talk, and we won an award from UK SEDS, which was really good. And we've done some outreach as well. So we've been on podcasts, we've organised events at the Science Museum. We organised an event for World Space Week, and yeah, we're just like, we've had some really cool opportunities come out of meeting each other and doing this kind of Paraboladies thing. So we're happy to be here to talk to you about how you can get involved and do things like this as well. So my pun of the evening, there is a real buzz around human space exploration at the moment. So going back to the moon and onto Mars, commercial space flight is kicking off. So that's suborbital, like Virgin Galactic, and orbital as well. So NASA will let you pay for a seat to the International Space Station. Launching astronauts from US soil again. And then there's been lots in the science news about evidence of life and water elsewhere in the solar system on the moon. Is it Saturn? Or was it Jupiter? I can't remember. Dear. Parallels with the pandemic, so isolation, confinement, deconditioning, limited resources, those are all kind of echoing what astronauts go through in a lot of the research that's been done in space medicine, and we can use that to help with what's going on at the moment and vice versa. And then Tim Peake will be returning to the ISS soon as well. So there'll be a lot of kind of STEM outreach and stuff in the news about human space flight. So it's a good time to get involved. So you should know if you attended the first lecture in this series, but just in case anybody didn't, what is aerospace medicine? So aerospace medicine focuses on the clinical care, research and operational support of the health, safety and performance of crew members and passengers of air and space vehicles, together with the support personnel who assist operation of such vehicles. This population often works and lives in remote, isolated, extreme or enclosed environments under conditions of physical and psychological stress. So you're basically looking after a group of usually super healthy people in extreme environments, now moving towards like space tourism. So people might have pre-existing conditions, and you're putting those in an extreme environment as well. And this paper, an overview of space medicine, is a really good one to read if you want to see what kind of areas you can get involved in and what's going on at space agencies in the military and in commercial spaceflight as well. So it's a very broad speciality, very general. It covers, you know, the whole human in an extreme environment, but it's very niche in terms of who your patient is and where they are. but it's not just space. So if you think about all of the training that an astronaut goes through before they go to space, things like centrifuges, diving, aviation, it actually encompasses a lot of other extreme medicine as well. And I'm going to break down the field so you can kind of get a feel for different directions that you could go in if you're doing research or learning about areas of space medicine. And I borrowed the next 5 slides from the Aerospace Medical Association, but I pay my membership, so I think it's okay that I did. So, like I said, it's a very general speciality, and it's not just the job of being a space doctor. You could have a clinical or academic interest. So for example, you could be a neurosurgeon and have an interest in it. A gynecologist could have an interest in space medicine, absolutely anything. And they also work with professionals from multiple disciplines. So engineers are really important to make sure that the spacecraft's safe and the human interaction with the engineering actually works efficiently. Nurses, pharmacists, physios are really important. So that kind of deconditioning that astronauts go through, physios help them rehabilitate afterwards when they come back to Earth. Pilots, civilians, military, researchers, obviously there's a lot of research that goes on all the time in on the ISS and in spaceflight. And yeah, the 4 areas are basically clinical, research, education, and policy. So in terms of clinical aerospace medicine, the role might involve remote medical care. So this could be aeromedical transport, telemedicine is a big thing, especially if they're in space, but also on Earth. Telemedicine in the military is obviously very common. Search and rescue, disaster preparedness, and accident investigation. So if there's a crash, an aerospace medical doctor is super involved in figuring out what went wrong and how it can be improved in the future to prevent another accident. Screening and prevention, so it is a preventative occupational medicine speciality. So you're looking after aircrew and pilots, your astronauts, and also people on the ground like air traffic controllers and flight controllers. And it's just the general health maintenance of those people across their lifetime and making sure that they're safe in their working environment. And then in terms of research, I mean, there is so much. It's the whole human body in various extreme environments. And I'm smiling because these pictures are of us on our MSc. So on the top right, you can see we're on a tilt table. So it's me, Lauren and Maya all getting tilted to simulate that blood flow to your head that you experience when you go into microgravity. And then on the bottom, Maya's running on a treadmill and we simulated Mars and moon gravity. So we're taking readings of how fast she can go and using her weight to kind of figure out how she would ambulate in those extreme environments. But yeah, so human factors, how people live and survive and interface with engineering. Environmental effects and mitigation, so how can you make all of those extreme environment factors not impact human physiology as much. So how much oxygen do you need in the cabin on a spaceship, for example? Radiation countermeasures are really important, especially when we're leaving orbit. So going to Mars, radiation is supposed to be one of the biggest kind of factors preventing us going safely, really. So there's a lot of research in that at the moment. In terms of human physiology, it's all of the different systems in the body, and then it's all of the factors in the extreme environment. So you could cross cardiovascular with microgravity, you could cross genetics with radiation. There are so many areas of study, and also areas of study that haven't even been done yet. Behavioral health and performance is really important. So if you think about fatigue, for example, the job of being an astronaut is very tiresome. I think Lauren spoke through how the days planned out, and they're so busy, and it's really mental and physical hard work. So how can you prevent them getting fatigue? How can you flight plan and know when your astronauts aren't going to be able to complete a task safely and to keep them safe? Somebody's drawing on my screen. Thanks for that. Social isolation, like I mentioned, at the moment, that's a big thing in our lives as well. but it obviously affects people's psychology when they're in space. And then also life support systems, so the engineering interface with how the human lives in that spaceship, everything from oxygen to cooling systems in the spacesuit. There are so many options to do research in this area. I don't know how to rub that out, I'm afraid. If you know, please rub it out. Okay, so education. I think in medicine, education's a huge topic. Everybody who goes on to be a doctor teaches medical students on the wards when they're on placement, and it's just the same in aerospace medicine as well. But also patient education, so you're teaching pilots how to recognize when they might get symptoms of hypoxia. You're treating astronauts to know how to keep safe because they don't have a doctor on board with them, so you might have to teach them basic medical skills. So there's a lot of teaching for the actual people that you're looking after, as well as your colleagues and students. There are other professions that you need to teach and share knowledge with, and also other areas of STEM. So engineers are building, you know, the spaceship that somebody needs to live in, but until they know the medical requirements, they can't get everything correct to the standards that they need to be. So there's a lot of multidisciplinary kind of teaching and working together. And then of course, you could get a job in research as a lecturer, and you'd be teaching BSc, MSc, PhDs, and helping grow the field and forward the science. And then a big part of aerospace medicine is policy. So as you can imagine, things are regulated very tightly in both aviation and space, and aerospace medical doctors are involved in writing those policies and keeping them updated as well. So you can work for military, the government, and then there's a lot of issues with pilots and astronauts, so making sure that fatigue levels are monitored and that everybody's safe at work. There's lots of research into addiction and mental illness and medications that are prescribed as well. Pilots, are they able to take, for example, diabetic medication that would make them hypoglycemic? Things have changed over the years, and they change with new medications coming out as well. So aerospace medical doctors are involved in making sure all of that's up to date. And just to make a note that the job of aerospace medical doctor is not your only option. It can be a research or clinical interest as well. So like I mentioned, to be a gynecologist, you could be interested in space medicine as a side academic interest and do research in that, working in a hospital, but as well going to NASA and doing some research in it. So you don't have to be an aerospace medical doctor all the time. You can be any kind of doctor and have a research interest in this. So the specialty pathway in the UK is medical school, your foundation jobs, and then you can do GP, core medical training, acute care common STEM or anaesthetics. And then you go into the aviation and space medicine pathway, and that's through the military or the Civil Aviation Authority. So it's not an NHS specialty, though you will train in hospitals through your training in core medical training, for example. And this was made an official specialty in 2016, but aviation medicine has always existed as long as aviation has. And it was an occupational medicine specialty before this, but then became its own aviation and space medicine in 2016. And then in the US, it's very similar, but they do have a few more opportunities for the job of space doctor because obviously they have a bigger space agency. They also have more universities offering the kind of residency program. So if you're lucky enough to have a US passport then, and you're interested in doing it, then I would look towards the US perhaps. So who could you work for? So I've mentioned that it's not the NHS, so it's the civilian government, Civil Aviation Authority in the UK, the military, so the RAF have a few ASM registrars and consultants. The private sector, so I don't personally know anybody on the ASM pathway in the private sector, but as you can imagine, with space tourism, on the cusp of kind of launching participants, then they're going to need doctors and they will be hiring them. So perhaps in the future, they might pay for you to do your specialty training with them, which would be really good. And then also academic medicine. So working as a researcher, clinician at a university that does aerospace medicine research, and then you could have clinical duties in a hospital as well. All right, so that kind of is a broad overview of the job and the kind of pathways that you could go down. So what can you do now to get involved? So this is a list of societies, not necessarily exhaustive, but ones that I'm kind of well versed with. So there's the Aerospace Medical Association, and within that there's the Aerospace Medicine Students in Residence Organisation and Women in Aviation Medicine. Oh, it should say Aerospace Medicine, I do apologise. BSEMA, so that's British Undergraduate Space and Extreme Medicine Association. UK Space Labs, so labs being life and biological sciences. The Royal Aeronautical Society, which has a subgroup of Next Generation Aerospace Medicine. The Space Generation Advisory Council has a Space Medicine Life Sciences interest group. And UK SEDS is the UK Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. So that's a broader space society, but they do have a lot more space medicine going on at the moment. The Physiological Society, that's broad physiology, but again, they do have some aerospace physiology going on, whether that's at conferences, events, or published in their journals. The Austrian Space Forum, so this is like an analog mission organisation, but they also do volunteer and training opportunities, especially for students. So if you check their website out, you can sign up, become a member, and perhaps go on a training course to be involved with analog missions. The Mars Society that I'm going to mention later, they have a few competitions going on, and space medicine can be a part of those as well. And then university societies, so like Aberdeen has one. I know that Liverpool do, Barts in the London do where I am, and I'm sure other universities do as well. So if you're at a university and you're listening into this and you've got a society, please do let us know, and like we can connect and maybe do some events together. All right, so I'm going to go through some of those in a bit more detail. So this is the biggie, the Aerospace Medical Association. So they have a journal called Aerospace Medicine Human Performance, and it's a great journal if you're a member of ASMA. I think it's about $50 for students. You get access to this journal, and there are so many papers on so many topics that you can read about. Very accessible platform to look through as well. They've got a big international conference every year. So if you do some research, you can apply for scholarships to go, get your abstract accepted, it gets published in their journal. And they've got lots of resources on the website, and it's a really great organisation, but it is based in the US, though it is international. And that leads on to the Aerospace Medicine Student in Resident Organisation. So resident is obviously the US equivalent of a specialty registrar in this country. But they offer scholarships, mentoring, they're doing events, and at the moment obviously everything's online, so it's more accessible to attend those events for us. They've got a Slack channel, they do a journal club and a Google channel mailing list as well, so if you're a member of ASMA you can join AMSTRO. And then Women in Aerospace Medicine, this is a new kind of subgroup of ASMA, and they are doing lots of events at the moment and are offering mentorship opportunities and kind of a sense of community, because I think that women have definitely been underrepresented in this specialty in the past, and they're trying to foster a bit more diversity, which is really great. And then we have the Royal Aeronautical Society and Next Generation Aerospace Medicine. So this is based in the UK, the Royal Aeronautical Society is in London. They have a specialist group called Aerospace Medicine. You can join if you're a member of RAS, and they have events and conferences. So in the top right, you can see they have a memorial lecture every year. They have various lectures and webinars, and then they've got a Aerospace Medicine annual symposium. And I'm going to go into that a little bit later, but that's online this year, so you can definitely sign up for that. And then as part of that, Next Generation Aerospace Medicine is a new group led by one of the Aviation and Space Medicine registrars. And that's kind of fostering community and networking in the UK, lots of online resources and tutorials. They're going to be doing a lecture series. And I know that we're going to be working together, Aberdeen, Barts and Liverpool, to do this lecture series and get some speakers in to teach you some aerospace medicine. So if you sign up on the website and keep an eye on your email account and on the Twitter as well, you'll see that opportunity coming through, and that will be free. And they also have a competition at the annual symposium, which I'm going to go through in a little bit more detail too. So definitely check out Next Generation Aerospace Medicine. And UK Space Labs is kind of a committee of people who are experts in the field of life and biological sciences in space. And they share news and opportunities and kind of bring the community together. There's a new newsletter that you can sign up for on the website. And they recently ran an essay competition about coronavirus and how space can help it to solve that problem of the pandemic. And also UK Space Labs, in collaboration with the Space Generation Advisory Council, Space Medicine and Life Sciences subgroup, they're doing this systematic review workshop, and there are so many topics. Unfortunately, it's closed now, and it's kind of all the students are on their way to writing their systematic reviews, but hopefully if it goes well, I believe it's going to be a yearly thing. So everything from spaceflight genetics to deconditioning and rehabilitation for astronauts, pharmacology in space. There were some really interesting topics this year, so keep your eye out if that's going to be another opportunity. Some of the experts are writing a white paper to the government to say kind of what the future should look like in this field. And there's going to be a webinar with an update on that and some guest speakers on the 28th of November. So if you sign up for the newsletter, that information will come through, and it'll also be on the Twitter. And then they have a conference every year as well. So that'll be in the spring in 2021. And I'm sure that'll be online, so more accessible. And it's not just for people in the UK. I know it's called UK Space Labs, but anybody can join. And then I've mentioned the Space Generation Advisory Council and their subgroup, the Space Medicine and Life Sciences group. They have a mailing list, a Twitter, which you can join, and they have conferences, events, webinars, competitions, scholarships, research opportunities, mentorship opportunities, and a Slack channel. There are so many members of SGAC. It's a really huge community, loads going on. There's always a competition or a conference to apply to. So we'll check out that website for sure. And the committee itself has some representation with people from the UK. So it's really great to kind of have that link and make sure that things are going on in the UK as well. And then this is just a selection of conferences that I know are happening in the future. So ASMA will be having their 2021 conference next year, hopefully, and that's over in America. And then ICAM is the International Conference of Aerospace Medicine, and that was meant to happen for the very first time in 2020, but it's been postponed to 2021, and that will be in Paris. The IAC is an international conference that's on the top right, so International Astronautical Congress, and that happens all over the world. I think the next one's in Dubai, but there are some good scholarship opportunities actually, and if you've done some research or even a literature review or a project, educational project, anything, you can submit it to there and hopefully get a scholarship, so it could go to Dubai next year, which is really exciting. And then the World Extreme Medicine Conference happens every year. That's usually in Edinburgh. It was just online, and it's scheduled for 2021 as well. I think going to be in Edinburgh, hopefully. So yeah, that's a really cool conference because it's not just space medicine. It's all kind of areas of extreme medicine, and you can maybe, if you've done something in space and gotten interested, say in diving or aviation medicine just in itself, you can go and check out this conference and see some very charismatic speakers. It's always very entertaining as well as academic. And then the Physiological Society have an early career conference called Future Physiology. and that's great for students. They take BSc and MSc projects, and they have competitions like you can win for best presentation, best poster, best abstract, so lots to put on your CV if you apply to that. UK SEDS, they've had a couple of conferences this year. Actually, they had one in March just before kind of lockdown happened, and that was at the University of Birmingham, and then they just had one online last month, and I imagine they'll be having more online events, so keep your eye on UK SEDS. SGAC have a summit on now, the Space Gen Summit, and obviously you can't register now to be a delegate, but some of the talks are actually online, so if you Google that, you'll be able to watch some of the keynote speakers without being a delegate. You can just watch it as a member of the public. ESA and NASA have so many conferences, meetings for their researchers, for collaborating researchers and universities. So if you're involved in a project and it uses NASA or ESA data, or it's through a research group that's connected, there's always like emails going out saying that something's happening and you can apply for that. And a lot of those have been online recently as well, so definitely more accessible. So this is the Royal Aeronautical Society's conference, which is happening on the 9th of December. It's a one-day event and it's celebrating women in aviation and space medicine. And the speaker lineup is on the right. So it's a pretty impressive lineup and I'm really excited. I got my ticket. You can also submit an abstract. So as students, there's and early career doctors, there's a competition, anything from a literature review to case studies, research projects for BScs or MScs. You can apply and there's a competition for 3 people to get a free ticket, and then they kind of fight it out to be the winner at the conference on the day. But it's good fun. I actually took part in it last year and it was awesome. So would recommend applying to that and definitely attend the conference if you can. And then just some more events coming up. So I just grabbed these off Twitter, but there's the Wilderness and Emergency Medicine lecture series going on, that's online. So the Google site is there and you can take a screenshot or jot that down. And there's also a talk going on through the Women in Aerospace Medicine subgroup of asthma. And they've got Dr. Anna Sawyer talking about all of her work at Trish, which is a NASA partner, doing a lot of research in space medicine. And then also some of the smaller societies at universities are doing events. So this is just an event that we had at Barts in the past academic year, but they're always really interesting. And honestly, not many people come. And I think it's a shame because, you know, I guess it's because people haven't heard of them. But putting it out there, if you keep an eye on the social medias, you can see some pretty impressive speakers at these university events. And this is an event that just happened in World Space Week last month, but they're actually putting all the slides and the talks on the website. So the Space Health Symposium has so many topics, as you can see listed here, everything from space surgery to psychological well-being in space. And all of those talks are going to be online. So we'd check out this as a learning resource. And I'm sure if you watch them all, you can put it on your CV that you attended because it's pretty much the same thing. All right, so moving on from events, networking and mentorship. So my advice in this kind of area is to be visible. So now more than ever, it's important to have an online presence to see what events are going on and to connect with people. I think the space medicine online community is really friendly and inclusive, and everyone's always willing to answer a DM or point you in the direction of whatever you're interested in. It's an international field, so connecting is really important, and it's easier than ever at the moment. And you can ask people in the job or, you know, who already have experience in space medicine about what the role's like, seeking advice for career opportunities, just ask for a chat about what they've done with their career, with their life, or to review maybe an idea and entry for a competition that you've got and give you some guidance on that. And then I also think it's important to mentor others too. So students in schools or lower years of medical school, you can kind of chat to them about aerospace medicine and get them involved, because the more people that are interested, hopefully the more jobs there will be, and the speciality will grow, because it is quite a small speciality at the moment. And a little bit on self-study and resources. So I've got some books here. So there's the Handbook of Aviation and Space Medicine, and I think that came out last year. So that's a really great resource. It's kind of a clinical handbook. And then Ernst's Aviation and Space Medicine is a kind of a chunkier book, and that's got so many chapters in about anything and everything. And then the Fundamentals of Aerospace Medicine as well. These were kind of textbooks that we were told to read on our course when I did my MSc in Space Physiology and Health. But there are a few more books out there, but these three especially I found very useful. The NASA and ESA websites, so they have loads about space medicine, especially NASA. They have something called the Human Research Roadmap, and you can kind of click through subcategories and find out what projects they've got going on at the moment, what projects have recently finished, and what the results were, and what areas need research. So it's really good for finding your interest and finding maybe how you might want to get involved, because to just say space medicine, it's a very big topic, but this breaks it down really well. There are a few YouTube channels, people teaching online, because it isn't part of the medical curriculum. And I think people are taking advantage of being able to kind of put those resources online at the moment. So I've seen a few pop up. If you just put space medicine into YouTube, and they'll come up for you. And there is the Aerospace Medicine podcast. So they've got a few episodes now, but the first one was Dr. Terry Martin, and I found that a really enjoyable episode, so I'd recommend listening to that. And then reading journal articles. So if you've got a university login, you can search on PubMed for journal articles and read some that interest you. And then also I've listed a few of the authorities and agencies that have kind of clinical guidance on. So the Civil Aviation Authority, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, International Air Transport Association, and the Aviation Safety Network database as well about historical aviation accidents. So they're all great resources to get a feel for what clinical aerospace medicine entails. So competitions. I mentioned that the Paraboladies kind of formed to do the Student Aerospace Challenge, so I have to mention that one. It runs every year, and it's not just space medicine, there are other topics as well. So you could easily apply medicine to another topic that interested you. But the specific space medicine topic is one that we've done twice now. And this year it's running online, and I'm not sure what will happen next year. It might be in Paris again, or it might be online, so keep an eye out for that. The Mars Society, so I mentioned they had a few competitions going on. So this is like not exactly space medicine, but like art competitions. They have a lot of those going on. And then also the Mars City state design. So a couple of the Paraboladies took part in designing kind of a city on Mars, and the health infrastructure that you would need there to support a population living on Mars, which is really interesting. On the bottom right, we have the UK Space Labs and SGAC SMLS competition, the essay competition on coronavirus. So how would you address the COVID-19 pandemic using a space application or technology? And I believe the finalists are announced, and the winners are presenting at the Space Gen Summit that I mentioned. So hopefully we'll find out who the winner was, and be able to put their essay in the newsletter or something and read about their cool idea. And then on the top right, a little bit of something I've done. So I just used a literature review that I did during my MSc and presented it at a conference, but I actually won an award for it. And it was just like the competition was part of the conference, but it was really cool to win something, and my university put it on the website, so I was really proud. But yeah, it just shows that like you can do something and kind of unexpectedly be part of a competition and win. So always look for opportunities in strange places. And this is one of the competitions coming up. So the Next Generation Aerospace Medicine Presentation Competition. So like I mentioned, you can submit an abstract now, And that can be on research, case studies, literature review, educational presentations. So you could literally take your favorite space medicine subject or aviation medicine and teach it to the audience. So it doesn't have to mean that you've already done a project. You could just submit an abstract on something you're interested in, and you can email your abstract. All the details are on the website, but the deadline's 16th of November. And on the right is me last year taking part in this competition. And it was really funny because I had a case presentation of a patient that I met in A&E, and the whole presentation was about how I didn't know if they were fit to fly, and how aviation medicine isn't on the curriculum. And then at the end of the presentation, I asked the audience if they thought that the patient was fit to fly. I did, and everybody said no. So that was quite embarrassing in front of a room of aerospace medicine doctors, but you know, it was fun. And I think everybody will remember us because I did that in front of them all. Would recommend taking part. Okay, ESA opportunities. So the European Space Agency have a lot going on for students, for sure. They have internships, so including space medicine, but also in other areas of the Space Agency. And you can check out their student internships. And next year, so I think the applications open in November, this month actually, and then they're taking place remotely. So the 3 to 6 months, and even though it's remote, you still get paid. I think it's €300 a month. Some of them are actually still in person, depending on kind of coronavirus clearance and whether you need to be in the lab or not. But yeah, they're definitely going ahead, whether that's remote or in person, in 2021. And then there is the Your Thesis programs. So there is Drop Your Thesis, which is dropping an experiment in a drop tower. Fly Your Thesis, which is flying it on a parabolic flight. So those two kind of mimic microgravity or weightlessness. And then Spin Your Thesis, spinning it in a centrifuge. So that's experiencing acceleration like more G's than you would experience from the Earth's gravity. So you can, if you're doing, I think it's a BSc or an MSc dissertation, those are really good things to apply for, because you can apply in teams and do these kind of super exciting experiments with your idea. And there's funding through the UK Space Agency for students in the UK as well. So if you get in touch with them and you've got an idea, you can definitely get funding to go over there and stay in a hotel and whatnot and get your experiments done. And then this is a good one. So the Space Physiology course, I know, so myself and Lauren have done it, and we know a few other people that have done it, and it's so cool to see all of the UK students going over to do this course. It was online this month, or was it last month in October? But it's usually in person in Belgium or Cologne. They pay for your expenses, and it's not just all lectures and research project. There's a trip to a museum and a trip around the ESA site, and you also get a talk from an astronaut, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, there are lectures on all kind of aspects of space physiology, and then also a group research project. And from the year we did it, these are the research projects that we did. So mine was the bouncing babies, what might the biological effects of being born in partial gravity be on human development. So it really got us thinking about kind of how the extreme environment of space, especially partial gravity, say on the moon or Mars, would affect how you develop in the womb and how you grow as a child. So it was a good one to do. And yeah, just some little photos. So that was our group in 2018. And my abstract that I did on menstruation in space, and the information booklet and the sign outside the European Astronaut Centre. It was really cool to be there. And STEM outreach. So this is a really great way that you can apply space medicine in kind of an inventive way. So STEM Ambassador Scheme is where you can go into schools, but you can also now do events online, and you can go in and talk to kids about anything and everything to do with space, and everybody loves space, so kids are always excited to hear about it. And then there's the International Space School Education Training, I think it's ISIT or ISET, and Lauren and Eleanor will be able to answer more questions on that. But I've been to a couple of events, so I met astronaut Mike Fall. He gave a talk, Pint of Science at Barts, and that was to raise money for the International Space School Education Training Programmes. Every year they run Mission Discovery at King's College London, so that's how Lauren and Eleanor worked on experiments and sent them to the ISS. And then this year, I think things are running online, and you can send an experiment to space and win a prize. So if you are 19 years old, you can turn 20 during the application period and the experimental period. So if you're a first year medic, this is perfect. You can get a team together, come up with an experiment and apply to send an experiment to space, I believe. But it's also school students as well. But that would be an awesome opportunity. If I was a first year, I would be doing that. World Space Week happens every October, so you can register your events for free on the website and host an event. So as the Paraboladies, last year we hosted kind of an evening with lecturer from Professor Rusamano, who talked about all of her work in space medicine. And then we gave a quick presentation as well on commercial space flight and health of space tourists. And we got funding from the Physiological Society for goodie bags, so everybody got some like space-themed sweets and stickers, and it was a really good night. Lots of people came. So it just shows with a bit of STEM outreach, you can bring kind of the space medicine community together. It was mostly university students and some lecturers as well, so that was really good. The Space and Satellite Professionals International Grant Scheme is currently running, so you can get I think it's £200 for any kind of STEM outreach that you want to do with space, not necessarily space medicine, but space in general. And there are other inventive ways to do STEM outreach as well. So especially in the online environment, you go on a podcast, you could start a podcast. I wrote an article through the conversation and it got published in The Independent, which was really awesome, on space medicine. And space surgery, sorry, and that was part of my MSc project. So yeah, it was good to write it in kind of a way that the public could read and get interested in space surgery. All right, so there are some departments and courses in the UK. So in terms of BSc, a physiology BSc could easily, you could make the dissertation space themed, or any kind of extreme medicine, and use that opportunity to do some kind of space physiology project. UCL have a space medicine module. Dr. Kevin Fong runs that, I believe, and anything of interest basically at that level, and you can apply aerospace to it. So don't just think, oh, I have to do a degree that has space in it. Not necessarily. You can just apply and pick your modules and kind of tailor it to what you want to do. And then MSc wise, so it's very sad to say, but the MSc in Space Physiology and Health is no longer running at King's College London, but there is a sister course called Human and Applied Physiology, and they have all of the aerospace medicine modules, and opportunities for the dissertation still exist at King's College London. So if you were going to take an MSc as an intercalation or do it but as a postgraduate, that's a good opportunity as well. And Exeter University have an Extreme Medicine MSc. That's in collaboration with World Extreme Medicine. And it can also be a diploma, so you can do it part-time as a diploma or an MSc once you graduate as a doctor. You might even take medical students now, actually. I think I read an update on the website. Courses, so I've mentioned the ESA Human Space Physiology course. There are also like low gravity courses and other space courses that you can apply for as an undergraduate or a master's student. The UK Space Primer ran at UCL, and that was it 2019, I think. It didn't happen this year, but it might happen again in the future. So that was kind of a 2-day course for medical students and early career doctors who wanted to learn about space medicine. And Northumbria University have an aerospace medicine and rehabilitation laboratory, and they have lots going on, especially in physiotherapy, and they've sent experiments to space. They've done parabolic flight experiments, so there's a lot going on there. And then the Faculty of Occupational Medicine have DAVMed, the Diploma in Aviation Medicine, that you can sit. That's a postgraduate medical exam, and if you sit that, you can basically be an aerospace medicine examiner. So not the job of a space doctor, but you can examine aircrew and pilots and, you know, assess if they're fit to fly and sign them off. So yeah, there are a few opportunities in the UK, and there will be others. So please let me know if your university's doing some space medicine research. This was just like a selection of who I know is doing aerospace medicine stuff. So yeah, intercalating is obviously a popular thing when you're a medical student. It's also popular to do a postgraduate degree after you graduate as well. So I decided to intercalate a Space Physiology and Health MSc, and it was such a good year, even though it was kind of cut in half by the pandemic. We made the most of it, so that's our cohort there. There were 10 of us, medical students, doctors, biology graduates, physiotherapists, coming from kind of all different backgrounds. I did my dissertation on quantifying performance of basically doing tasks with your hands when wearing a spacesuit. So that was really interesting. And then I did my library project in preparedness for surgical emergencies during Mars missions. And I got to present that at a couple of conferences as posters and talks. And I won a competition as well for best presentation. So that was a great opportunity. And we also got to go to ESA for a week as well. So that was kind of part of the course. And we got to do kind of a mini research presentation about an experiment that's on the ISS at the moment. And we also got to look at some of the facilities like the hyperbaric chamber. And we also did a lab book kind of practical. So that was Maya running on the vertical treadmill. And then some fun stuff like going into mission control and getting lots of pictures. So yeah, it was a good week, and that was part of the MSc. So research, getting involved in research as a medical student. My advice would be read around the topics that interest you and see where you think you might be able to use your strengths or learn a new skill. So on the right is the human research roadmap from NASA, and like I said, it's got so many, like you'll just be clicking for days, going through the things that might interest you. But I think that gives a good outline and indication of what's important and what's going on at the moment. You can find connections to researchers, to be supervisors, or to work in groups through networking. So I know it's difficult at the moment not meeting people in person, but attending online conferences, and they might have kind of group chats where you can network, or join in some of the societies that I mentioned earlier. It'll be good for networking as well. So you can email them and connect with them online and express interest, or ask them if they've got any kind of medical student opportunities. You can use opportunities such as dissertations or self-selected components during your degree and tailor them to be a research project in aerospace medicine. Things like electives, you could maybe go, if it doesn't have to be clinical, go and do a research project. And then also, not everything is publishable. I know that everybody wants to get those 2 points on the application when they apply for foundation jobs, but I think it's okay to just enjoy yourself and get experience and show kind of the people that hopefully you'll be working with in the future that you can work hard and kind of work as a team well. So it's definitely more to it than just getting it published. And things that you could do, for example, a case study. So I mentioned that I met a patient in A&E who was query fitness to fly, and he had a blood disorder. So that was just something that came up out of the blue. It wasn't, a project that I was looking for. There's lots of open source data, especially through NASA. Simulations, so computational simulations. You could do radiation levels, you could do all sorts just on the computer. You don't need to use actual human subjects. Analog missions, so they always take experiment applications, so you could get a group together and come up with an idea and say, we want to do this in an analog mission, and apply when they have calls for taking experiments. Systematic reviews, so I mentioned there were the systematic review projects through UK Space Labs and SGAC, but you could get involved. I think Northumbria University have a systematic review group with guidance on how to do systematic reviews. So if you got a team together, you could do one using their guidance. And then competitions can often involve research as well. So that's how we did our pre-flight medical checks. We did that research and we sent out a questionnaire to aerospace medicine doctors and people interested or working in the field. And that was basically our bit of research, and we made a 60-page report out of it. So there's always a way to get involved. It doesn't have to be as straightforward as you might think. You can be imaginative and get opportunities in strange places. All right, that's it. I think that's everything I could think of. So hopefully, yeah, something on there interested you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm so glad this is being recorded, because that is just so many things to think about, you know, so many different ways, so many different avenues. That was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We have a couple of questions in the chat so far. I'd really like to encourage anyone who's got anything on their mind to fire it into the chat while you have Nina's undivided attention, and we'll see what she thinks. The first question we have here is from Milad. He says, how did you first get interested in space medicine? I'm not sure if you covered that at the start or not.
Oh, no, I don't think I did. I've got a good story about it, actually. So I was working, making like some code to analyze breast cancer images. And it turned out that the same bit of code was used to look at craters on the moon. And I just thought, gosh, like space and helping cancer, like how do those two things go together? So it's like space medicine. And I was like, oh, space medicine is a thing. Like it's actually like, you know, there are doctors out there who just look after astronauts. So that's how I got interested in space medicine. And then going on from there, I realized it's much more. It's the aviation, it's diving, it's all of the kind of training in extreme environments as well. So yeah, that's how I got interested. So that would have been maybe half a decade ago now.
There you go. And that's a really good point. I think a lot of people don't quite realize the kind of overlap between work that's done for space medicine and how that can be applied to terrestrial medicine as well. So yeah. We have another question from Ali. He asks, what about vets? Is there any space in space medicine for vets?
So I don't know right now if space agencies employ vets, but I do know somebody whose granddad was a vet at NASA who took care of primates who they sent up to space. So it definitely used to be a thing. I imagine that if they are doing animal experiments, they need a vet to care for them. So yeah, I imagine as a vet, maybe even more niche than being a medic, but yeah, it should exist.
100%. Filippo asks, what other genetic studies have been done in this field? I don't know how much you know about this.
So I know a little bit. So I know the NASA twin studies were big, and obviously it was like N of 1 compared to his twin, but so much was done, everything from the microbiome to like immunology. Other genetic studies, there is NASA Gene Lab that you can look through open source data, and you can actually analyze the data as well if you make an account, and loads of like cell studies, animal studies, but human studies, not that many, but definitely a lot in other kind of analogues for human studies.
Okay, that's really interesting. We have quite a lot of people saying thank you and saying you did very well. Neve asks, can you tell us a bit more about the Babies in Space research project? I think that was the one from the Space Physiology course.
Yeah, so that was, so I think we got a few days to kind of do, it was just doing a literature review and kind of brainstorming how, from learning from the physiology lectures on the course, which was mostly about, as you can imagine, the adult body, how that might impact on embryonic development, how it might impact on growth. Yeah, so I think we all did a few slides each and came up with things like, well, the heart would develop and it would never be as strong as what it would have been on Earth. So maybe you could never send somebody who grew up in space back to Earth because they would always have postural hypertension, for example. So it was more of like getting you to think outside the box. And then we all had to present it, and our team didn't win, but somebody won. I can't remember who now. But we all got certificates for it, and it was really cool to kind of work as a team with other people from all sorts of backgrounds. It wasn't just medical students.
Yeah, I've also been in the course as well, and I know quite a few other people who have too. Probably a few in this audience as well. And I'm the same. I thoroughly recommend it. But yeah, no, that's very cool. Uh, Aman says that he is also interested in genetics. Do you have any other recommendations, maybe people to contact in genetics specifically?
So I know I've just said it, but NASA Gene Lab is the place to go. They have dedicated kind of working groups to help researchers who want to get involved and point them in the right direction of who they should go work with, or who could help them analyze some data. If you just type spaceflight genetics into PubMed and see who the research groups are, I'm not telling you to stalk people, but you could email them, because there's always a lead researcher to email and say you're interested in spaceflight genetics and what work are they doing. But yeah, the main people I know are the people who did the NASA twin study. I'm not so sure on people who did animal studies and cell studies, but they're all on NASA Gene Lab, the ones that have made the data public.
Yeah, I think that kind of echoes similar to something that I said last week. Kind of, if you don't ask, you don't get. Scientists love being flattered. Tell them that you think their work is really cool and you're really interested. How can you get involved? And quite often they'll be responsive. But the worst thing that can happen is either they say no or they just don't reply at all. So really, you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a few more people saying thank you and that you did really well. Majid asks, any advice for someone who might not have much scientific knowledge about space physiology, etc., but is still fascinated by the fields and wants to get involved? It might be hard to get involved with research papers and presentations without that scientific knowledge.
Well, everybody has to start somewhere. I don't know what put your background in and tell us what year you're in. But yeah, even as a first year coming straight out of school, even as a school student, you can get involved. You can send an experiment to the ISS as a school student. So do not let that put you off. How else are you going to learn apart from getting involved? I would say the first steps are definitely joining the societies, doing a little bit of reading and networking, and then you'll kind of find what interests you and be able to get involved in it. All it takes is like one person to say yes to doing a bit of teaching and mentorship, and then you're off. So, but don't measure your success by presentations and publications.
No, absolutely. And you're right, everybody has to start somewhere. A lot of this is very science heavy. So, get stuck in. So Nikita says that she's interested in radiology. What do you think? Can a radiologist be useful in space medicine and in any specific field?
Yeah, definitely. So I know Lauren's done a lot of radiology stuff, but everything from kind of ultrasound guided procedures and ultrasound imaging on the ISS. So there was a study that came out that found a blood clot in the neck of an astronaut, and that was in a radiology study using ultrasound. There are a few papers that have come out of ESA looking at cosmonaut brains. So like the white matter changes that happen during long duration space flight. Definitely radiology is a huge part of space medicine, diagnostically and interventionally as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure point of care ultrasound was originally developed to be used in space and then was brought back and kind of adapted to use on Earth.
Fascinating. Yeah, that makes total sense. Like, yeah, when you're in an extreme environment and you need something done, a space agency comes up with it, and then, yeah, we can apply it down here on Earth as well.
Yep. She says, awesome, thank you, there is hope for me. So,
Oh, yes.
Absolutely, there's hope for everyone. We've got another question here. Currently, you're a medical student, but what's your ultimate goal, or where do you see yourself in the space medicine field in 10 years?
Oh, okay, so hopefully in 10 years I've graduated from medicine. That is the first goal, and done kind of foundation years and maybe even specialty training by then. Let's say dream job, got onto the aviation and space medicine training pathway. I would love to be kind of like a clinical consultant and also doing research at a university and lecturing at a university. whether that's in the UK or abroad. I lived in America for a year during my postdoc, and I would love to go back to America. We'll see how the election comes and if they'll start accepting people to go back there. Trump doesn't seem to want to let people in, but I'm sure Biden would.
Absolutely, yeah, that would be very cool. Lots of international opportunities there. I think that's the end of our questions. If you still have something on your mind, feel free to fire it in, but don't run away just yet. I am going to post a link in the chat, and that will take you to our feedback form. And both Nina and I would be really, really grateful if you could fill that out and tell us, what went well, what didn't go well, if anything. We're very tough-skinned. We're big girls. We can take it. There's also a section on there to add your email if you'd like to be added to the Society's mailing list to find out about all of our events. And there's also a section to add your name and your email if you would like to have a certificate of participation sent out as well.